AITA for publicly calling out the school nurse? I am not op. Original post by U, AITA Glucosefather in R, Amethyst Hole, and NBSP. AITA for publicly calling out the school nurse? The 28th of October 2021. Me. 34M. My daughter with type 1 diabetes. 11F. My daughter has T1D. And has been diagnosed since she was 5. For the most part, she handles it like a champ. But she's a kid. Sometimes it sucks. I don't blame her when she's upset about it. She's gotten very good at managing how she's feeling and speaking up when she feels off or wrong. That said, she's 11, and the nurse and 2 of her block teachers are meant to supervise when she gives herself medication. We have a 504 plan in place at her school and have had it in place since diagnosis. I have conferences with teachers every year. And since she started at the middle school this year, her new nurse and administrative staff, I let my daughter speak her piece and let her feel heard. She's struggled with non-school extracurricular before ignoring her concerns when she says she doesn't feel good because she looks fine. This school year started the end of August and we met a week prior. I got a call Monday afternoon while I was at work saying that the school bus driver had to call the ambulance for my daughter on the way home because she fainted. My job is 40 minutes away, so I said I would meet them at the hospital. She was awake and chatting with her nurse when I got there. Her blood sugar had dropped very low while she was at school. She was feeling better and didn't seem too bothered, so I took her home once allowed and let her pick a movie to watch. Once the movie was over, I asked if she didn't feel good at school. I needed to make sure she wasn't ignoring her symptoms and had eaten lunch. She told me that she felt weird just before the end of the day, and checked her sugar with her teacher, who had sent her to the nurse when it was really low. When she told the nurse she needed glucagon, the nurse said no and she should take it at home when she gets there. At this point, I was raging. The nurse did not give her her medication and then sent her to the bus. The 504 plan in place has a stipulation that if her blood sugar is too low at the end of the day, she cannot take the bus home. The nurse is supposed to give her glucagon and I get called to pick her up, arrange someone to take her home. The bus drivers aren't trained to know what to look for or to give her medication. I called the school Tuesday morning to arrange a meeting to talk about what happened. We scheduled it, but it hasn't happened yet. In the meantime, I went wild. Mile-long Facebook post with pictures of the 504 and hospital bill and me ranting. It kind of took off and got a lot of attention. Last night, my siblings and coworkers started telling me maybe I went too far in making the post. Specifically in my naming the nurse. It was shared in a couple of different pages on Facebook for our county and town. And a lot of people have been making comments on the school board's social medias about the nurse. A lot of the outrage comes from other parents with kids on 504 or IEP plans. AITA for calling out the school nurse? Verdict. NTA and NBSP. Update nurse call out the 12th of November 2021. In short, the nurse was fired. She was reported to all necessary persons by myself and the school. My daughter is fine. She is in a new school. We're reviewing her treatment and school plans with doctors. That day, my daughter's last block teacher had gone to the nurse to check in on her because she knew her sugar was too low to go on the bus. She didn't see my daughter there and asked the nurse, who told the teacher she'd dismissed her to the bus. Internally, the teacher reported the nurse before I even knew what happened. My lawyer came to the meeting with me. The school was already in damage control mode and as apologetic as could be. They let me know the nurse was put on leave by the next morning. Their lawyer came with an offer to pay the medical bills. He talked about how they would be meeting with the teachers' union so they could properly move forward with the nurse's dismissal. My lawyer and I left, and he said they were doing everything they could to not have me sue them. I chose not to sue so long as they covered the hospital bills and damages. For those who asked about glucagon injection without her passing out, that day, her vision went black. She was dizzy, and she was stumbling once in the nurse's office. Other health things. She's getting a CGM. And a phone. Regrettably, I was not above bribing her. We're revising her plan and talking to her new school about all of the changes. For those concerned about my using the nurse's name, my lawyer had no concerns since her name was in multiple places associated with the school, and her place of employment was on her own social media sites. Since during the meeting it was confirmed what happened with my daughter and what she told me was accurate, he didn't think she would have any grounds to stand on if she wanted to pursue action against me. For those who commented I was tough for sharing my daughter's info on Facebook. I have 50 friends who are majority family. I also always check with her when I post pictures and about what I share. That's the easiest place for multiple people to get quick and/or big updates at once. Some of the older family members check Facebook more than their emails. You can be upset I shared this, but this system has worked for us. Family gets updates of what she's okay with them all knowing. I didn't think my Facebook could share my post, but my privacy settings were open. That's since been fixed. Also, since a few asked, I am my daughter's only parent. Her mother gave up all rights and no longer lives nearby, which is why she is not in the list of emergency contacts. For obvious reasons, I'm still upset about it all. But my daughter is acting as if nothing ever happened. She's fitting into her new school well, and she's as happy as ever. And NBSP. Reminder, I am not the original poster. Oop came in ready to break a foot off in the school's ass only to find the school had broken their own foot off preemptively. Smart move on their part. Shout out to that teacher though for going above and beyond and checking on the daughter. And for reporting the nurse. While the admin and noose had messed up huge. I think I would have stayed at a school if I saw teachers caring about my kids like that. Though, I can see being worried about retaliation or other drama, so I kinda get the reason for the switch. I worked as admin staff at a summer day camp this past year. We had a kid with T1D. We would never have allowed her to ride the bus home if she was low. Honestly, Dad couldn't have done much worse, and I think he still would have been justified. This negligence could have been on a criminal scale if the girl had died. The nurse should lose her job and her license at a minimum. 100% on the parents' side here. As a chronically ill kid, the nurse denied me necessary medication only once before my mom ripped her a new butthole. Luckily I got the medication the same morning, but I was accused of lying to get out of class by the school nurse. Pro tip for health needs parents. We have to not only give them authority, but persuade them that they have the authority to do what they need to do. It is extremely difficult for children to defy authority in a school setting. When someone has the authority to tell them what to do, they do what they are told. Assigned teachers and school nurses should be aware of the 504 and following it. But schools are full of other adults' lunchroom and playground monitors, substitute teachers, specials teachers such as art and PE, who may see every kid in the school 45 minutes per week and can barely memorize all their names, let alone every student's needs. Volunteer parents who supervise the garden project, etc., etc. Those are the places well-intentioned mistakes can be made. My son could sense an attack coming on, but there was no visible sign. Even I as parent couldn't tell. I could only take his word for it. It was understandable when an aide who didn't know him said, "Recess is almost over. Just 3 more minutes." So I had a talk with him. I explained firmly and clearly that if anyone ever told him the wrong thing because they didn't know, he shouldn't argue. He should just go straight to the office, where the meds and nurses' room also was. I assured him that no student in the history of elementary school ever got in trouble for taking himself to the principal's office. That made logical sense to his 6-year-old brain, and gave him more confidence. Imagine reading this story about a nurse who didn't just not do her job. She actively did the exact opposite of what she was supposed to do and put the health of a child in danger. And then calling the UPN off for using the nurse's name. As if the nurse is the victim here. The nurse deserved to lose her job and also to lose her license and to never ever be able to be in a position of responsibility around children again. This post shows my bias. Throughout the entire read I thought the parent was the mother, except in the end when the parent says the mother gave up all her rights. Back in the 2000s, my T1D manifested in my junior year of high school. Initially there wasn't really a dedicated on-site nurse. I just had to wave at the receptionist and de facto nurse who knew all of the dozen students who were supposed to have quick access to the tiny clinic room in its mini fridge where things like my insulin were stored. A month or two into my senior year, they'd hired a full-time nurse who insisted on keeping the clinic and mini fridge locked while she dealt with each student one at a time. Her first day, I burned through half of my lunch period waiting for my turn in the clinic to take my insulin. And she wanted me to fill out her paperwork with details about how much insulin I was taking and what I packed for lunch that day. Her second day, there were a few extra students with boo-boos from PE, and I didn't get access to my insulin until lunch was over and I was supposed to start hoofing it to my next class. I was furious, but I played it cool. I slipped my insulin into my pocket and never went back to the clinic again. None of the admins or nurse ever once asked why one of the diabetics stopped showing up for his insulin. The whole experience cemented my opinion about school administrators as worthless people. I say we kick 80% of them to the curb and divide their salaries amongst the teachers. I'm curious as to why she switched schools. The nurse was promptly fired and her teachers had the nurse reported before the parent even knew what was happening. It seems like the school in general did right by trying to fix the mistake with just the nurse really being at fault. I feel like making the daughter switch schools is punishing her. Kids are often very resilient. We all were at that age, more or less, because of how our brains work. So I'm glad to see that the kid is doing well. As she gets older, she might be troubled by this. Or it's just a funny story she tells. Her dad is going to have nightmares about this for a while. I, personally, would not specifically name the nurse because internet people are crazy and I don't want to leave an excuse for someone to make her a hashtag. Growing Heart MNDIAYE 97. But otherwise, the publicity is sometimes the only thing to make organizations do their jobs. I'm glad OOP's daughter is okay. This is the way. There is no far that is too far when it comes to dealing with incompetence putting a child's life in danger due to malicious indifference to a medical emergency. NTA, but I wouldn't name the nurse publicly. At least on day 0. That's the time for calculated action. Oops, should have named the nurse. Dereliction of duty is one of the criteria for losing your nursing license. Most likely, that nurse will be reported to the State Board of Nursing. They will open an investigation and decide if that nurse is a danger to the public. If found guilty, the bond can punish the nurse from re-education or revoking the license. That entire process with the bond is public knowledge. You can go to your state's BON website and find a list of healthcare individuals who have been punished. I'm a teacher and trained in emergency medicine administration, and this was egregiously bad. The nurse broke every possible rule and could have killed this girl. She should have her license revoked. As a type 1 diabetic, I can feel that poor little girl's pain. Low blood sugar can make you disoriented and panicky. For a nurse to deny that child a chance to correct her blood sugar is neglect. Nurses are trained to treat diabetic symptoms. It's not difficult to give her sugar. It would have taken her less than 5 minutes and saved the girl's life. If she wouldn't have gotten to the hospital, she could have died, even though she was treated. Going that low causes you to feel like you got hit by a bus. It's so good that OOP is getting her a CGM. It will make managing her blood sugars so much easier. I absolutely love mine, and it has saved my life countless times. I'm in the UK, not US, but this is the type of stuff that terrifies me about having to send my 2-year-old T1D kid to school one day. I got knocked out during a rugby game as a teenager and off to hospital because the on-site paramedics said I had a concussion and it's mandatory to go to hospital. I get to hospital and there's a nurse there who states I'm faking it. I just want attention and there's nothing wrong with me. I went home, walk in the door, and my older brother, who is a nurse, took one look at me and said, "There's something wrong with you and you need to go to hospital." My memory of this is all pretty vague, but I went back to hospital and spent the night there. He put in a complaint about the nurse, but I don't think anything came of it. My brother told me that like there's dodgy mechanics or builders, there's dodgy nurses and doctors. This story reminded me of that. Kinda living for the awesome dad posts.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.